Hey guys, this is Pablo with Meditation Amsterdam. It's pretty late on a Sunday night, and I had a stream of insights today during meditation that were just absolutely phenomenal, and I wanted to share them with you guys, so long as they're fresh. Before I get started, I want to welcome some of the people that started joining the channel as of late. I started making videos a little bit more often. I can't fake this, despite the fact that Google rewards people who post content really often. But the fact of the matter is, I can only do these videos when I feel there's something important to communicate. So much to the detriment of the growth of the channel, I'm just gonna keep doing videos whenever I feel like, as opposed to whatever YouTube rewards. And that's just that, I suppose. At any rate, welcome. That turned into a rant real quick. And what I wanted to share, I wanted to share a couple of insights that dawned today. And I want to emphasize two in particular. One of them is a technical insight, if you will. And I tried to put it in words. I tried to summarize it in words, made a little note about it. And it goes along the lines of realizing that the sense of self, or the spurious I, the ego, is, I would define it today, according to that insight, as a mental belief in being a separate entity, or a separate identity, which can achieve the control of reality so as to feel good things and avoid bad things, or especially avoid bad emotions, through the physical contraction of the breath. In other words, the ego believes itself to be an entity. It uses the subconscious contraction of the breath because that subconsciously suppresses things that we don't want to feel. And so a few of the people that I was working with this week took this on, and we started to experiment with it. And it was very quickly noticed that as we start to go to our head due to emotions that are all unresolved, our breath immediately becomes clenched. And if we start to notice that more and more, then we can go into an active release of the breath. You could almost get to the point where, you know, you got reality here, and you got your recoil away from it, and that recoil is done, at least on a physical level, is done a lot with the diaphragm. It's done a lot by trying to tense up the diaphragm. And you could think of overthinking and egoic rumination as the noise that the mind makes when a tense diaphragm is trying to move through the breath cycle, and at the same time dealing with the friction of the contraction that's taking place. So there's a contraction taking place, and that causes friction against an otherwise free-moving diaphragm, and that friction is what triggers thought. You could kind of see it that way, which is why they say that the cycle of the breath, the full circle of the breath, contains the entirety of the mind. If you could do a whole cycle of the breath from inhale to exhale without any resistance whatsoever, you would have transversed the entirety of the mind without any friction, and therefore without any thought. Something to think about, and perhaps something also to put into practice as you guys work on your emotional release and the kind of techniques that we've always advocated in this channel. Now, that's a technical insight, very valuable, something that I've been using quite a lot and decided to share because it became very prevalent in the work of this week. And secondly is a really, really big one. And it's the big one about doing nothing, or nothing there to be done in order to awaken. Now, what happened today was I came to the inevitable realization that caring for an outcome or trying to produce an outcome is a very it's a very useful illusion, but it is ultimately not to be taken that seriously, because to care about the outcome has the rather nasty property of tethering you to the outcome. You've become outcome dependent, and therefore your mood now belongs in the realm not of cause, but in the realm of effect, which can't be controlled. So you've outsourced your center by caring about how something pans out after you've put your input out there. And that's a very, very flimsy position to be in, extremely flimsy. And what it does is it fills you with fear. Yeah. So to let go of outcome dependence is, of course, what needs to eventually happen. But here's the thing. You can't stop caring about outcome dependence, because if you try to stop caring, now you've gone from caring to you've gone from caring for an outcome to caring about not caring, and therefore you're seeking now the outcome of trying not to care. Yeah. So you've just gone one step backwards in the game. And see, here's the thing is, you're now becoming the one who's playing the game of not caring. You used to be playing the game about caring, and now you're playing the game about how do I manage to not care for the outcome. Now, if you notice this, if you come to notice this through your meditation, because this is an insight in and of itself, right? This is not some telling you about it, but it's an insight that ought to dawn experientially. The more you observe your mind, the more this insight has a chance to arise. Because what you start to notice is that you can't even stop thinking if you try. You can't stop caring if you try. You can't stop anything. You can't really control how things affect you or what goes on in yourself emotionally and mentally. It just happens to you. And if enough observation is done, then the insight that this is the case will arise. See, hearing about it, you're on a huge risk of just believing that that is the case, but experientially is not in your bones. And so what you'll do is you'll start bypassing things to try to pretend that you already roll that way. And you'll do a lot of damage to yourself and to your life by trying that. Because you'll try to go around proving that this is the case. You know, see how above the fray I am? I don't even need to, I don't know, you fill in the blank. I don't need to do X or Y doesn't affect me because I'm above it, or I should be practice being above it. So it's all a bypass when you do it that way. So meditation is there. It's almost like the more you observe your mind and start to try to manipulate things and fail every time around, you start to catch on to the fact that you've almost, if you've heard about game theory, you play out all the scenarios. So the mind goes, no, then I'll try to do this, now I'll try to do that. And you keep playing out all the scenarios. And somewhere in the background, your awareness starts to become aware that these scenarios are just being played out. Scenarios in which outcome dependence and manipulation of circumstances is constantly playing itself out. And when you've done enough observation, then the inevitable conclusion is that you can't really control what goes on in yourself emotionally and mentally. In which case, it becomes beyond caring and not caring. You come to realize that the caring game and the non-caring game are both false because they're being played by a false I. You see? Now, once again, it doesn't matter whether I mention this. This is more a kind of sharing of the insight. But this insight is not information, it's not a technique, it's not something you should believe. It's the sharing of an outcome. This insight is an outcome of a process. And what's interesting is that once that insight arises, it's crystal clear. I don't need to now convince myself about the fact that there's nothing to do, because by that token, there's also nothing not to do. Doing is beside the point. Caring is beside the point, and doing is beside the point. It's about the fact that that which believes itself to do the carer and the doer is spurious. Yeah. And so now, see, it's not about belief, and that's why spiritual bypassing and this whole Neo-Advaita thing came about, is people who heard this, they understood it really well, and they truly believe it. In other words, it's not people who say there's nothing to do, there's no one here. They really actually believe that that's the case. They're absolutely convinced of it. And they may even experientially get a little bit of feedback that this is the case. But it's not about belief that this is the case. It's about the insight arising out of the mind essentially exhausting itself. Not exhausting itself, becoming tired of seeking, or becoming fed up, or just stopping to catch his breath type of exhausted. Exhausted in the sense of mapping itself out completely and thoroughly, every nook and cranny, and noticing that caring and outcomes are not where it's at. That's the inevitable conclusion of the relentless observation of the mind. So you exhaust the mind because you've permeated the mind with your attention in a very, very thorough kind of way and gone, nope, this ain't where it's at. Okay, that's the kind of exhaustion that we're looking for. It's not I'm fed up and so I'm just going to believe that there's no self. It's not that kind. Now, some people can make the jump without the full exhaustion of the mind. They can see further down the game and go like, oh, I get what this is entirely about. And others, like myself, we follow the doubting Thomas route. For those of you who are not familiar with the Bible, doubting Thomas is one of the 12 apostles, or so the story goes. And when Jesus resurrects after being crucified, he summons the apostles and he goes, hey, it's me, it's Jesus, I'm back from the dead. And everybody goes like, oh, well, the master is back from the dead. We believe him, right? And doubting Thomas goes, hang on a second. I don't believe it. I don't know who the hell rises up from the dead. This makes no sense. I want to touch the holes in your hands. I want to put my finger in the wound in your between your ribs. I want proof that this is the case. I'm going to go down fighting. See, this is the ego. It's a protector, right? Why should the ego be convinced that there's no self, or just drop the whole project and go like, well, I guess, that's what they say. And it makes complete sense. So I'm just going to follow that. Doubting Thomas decided not to follow that. He wanted to go down with a fight. He wanted to be absolutely convinced there could not be a mistake about this because the stakes were too high. And now in the Bible, or rather in Catholic school, which I attended as a kid and a youngster, they'll paint doubting Thomas in this evil light. Oh, he's silly. He was asking for proof, but that's because he didn't have any faith. But see, in Gnosticism, doubting Thomas is famous for precisely the opposite reason. They went like, yeah, but he didn't want to believe. He wanted to know. He wanted direct experiential knowledge that was Christ. And his thirst for knowledge and his sincerity and his like, no, I'm not going to just believe it. I'm going to like really poke the wound quite literally. That's what got him to be the only one of the 12 apostles who touched the risen Christ. In other words, the real Gnostic message behind doubting Thomas's doubt and the touching of the risen Christ is doubt this all the way through. Let the ego properly go down fighting, because that's the kind of ego death that you want. You don't want the one that goes like, well, there's no self. Oh, it's all like kumbaya and it's all about nice, so I'm going to try to like have no desire and I'm going to try to do this. It's complete nonsense. Why would you try that? What's in it for you? Like you need to truly be convinced that in surrendering the ego, you're playing a higher game. And the only way to do that is to max out on the game of the ego. At least for me it was. I can't speak for others, but it's a sure-footed way of doing it. It's a sincere way of doing it, because anything else could be just another ruse that you're trying to place to weasel out of the process, especially the painful parts of it. So you want your ego to go down fighting. You want to explore every possibility of becoming enlightened, not because it works, but because you need to be absolutely convinced that it doesn't. Okay, and anything else runs the risk of just being a kind of seeking a shortcut or a bypass or something that will get you to nirvana without any effort, because you're really clever, or a chosen one, or because you believe that effort and doing something is not what's up. That's a very, very risky thing to do, exceptionally risky, because you could bypass your entire spirituality and you could bypass your life by doing that kind of thing, right? You don't want that. I'll leave you with a final insight, which almost deserves its own vehicle, but since this one is nice and insight-packed, I'll share it anyway, which is that the yin-yang symbol suddenly made complete sense for me, in the sense that they could have made a circle that had a straight line between. One half would be white, the other black, and the opposite dots would be in the middle of that. Yeah. But they made an S-shaped thing instead. And the reason for that is because the S shape that cuts through, it's the peak and the trough of a wave. And it's trying to show that when ultimate yin is reached, it has in it the kernel of yang arising. So ultimate surrender brings complete pure yang and pure power, because in surrendering completely, you by that same token become completely receptive to the way things are, without the polluting influence of egoic intent, which skews your view of things. You let go of intent completely, at least temporarily. That allows for the clear view of what's actually up, without your intent polluting that view. And when you see exactly what's up, 100% clear, now you know 100% clearly which direction to take and what to do. The direction, interestingly enough, is nowhere, and whatever needs to be done is actually nothing. But as I said, that's an insight that arises from that complete clarity. To go nowhere and do nothing before surrender has been complete is kind of faking it, and it's going to get you into a lot of trouble, because you're going to try to prove that you're surrendered by avoidance, and that's going to be very toxic for your life, of course. So real surrender engenders true yang, and that's what we wanted. We want to be in complete contact with reality so that we can get a read on it, and being in complete contact, surrendering completely and perceptually to the now, gives you the power that you'd always been looking for, because the power you're looking for is the power of knowing how to act appropriately at the given time. And in order to do that, there cannot be any distance or polluted intent or egoic intent between reality and yourself. So you need total yin for real yang to arise. All right, that went on a little bit longer than the typical video, but I thought it was a lot of interesting stuff that just came in big waves during this weekend, and I thought it would be really cool to share that. And as usual, I'm very curious what you guys have to make of it, so do share it in the comment section. If you believe that these videos are interesting and potentially interesting to others or beneficial to others, then your liking, sharing, and subscribing is always great for the channel visibility and very motivating to me. So thanks for sharing around, liking, commenting, and I'll be back with more videos pretty soon. Cheerio. Bye-bye.